Beneath the ocean's serene surface lies the realm of apex predators, sharks. These waters beckon the brave, transforming prey into a predator. Each swells hints at a deadly encounter, challenging adventurers to test their mettle. Amid the mystery of these depths, one must stay vigilant, respecting the ocean's unforgiving hunters. Explore 6 gripping underwater attack tales. In the balmy summer of 2012, off the picturesque coast of Gansbaai, South Africa, a family's leisurely yacht outing turned into a heart-stopping ordeal. Gansbaai, a small fishing town in the Western Cape, had long been known as the great white shark capital of the world. Its waters, teeming with seals and fish, attracted numerous shark species, making it a hotspot for marine researchers and thrill-seeking tourists. The Ritz family, Father Quentin, Mother Marianne, and their spirited 12-year-old son Nigel, embarked on a day of leisure aboard their new 40-foot yacht, the Sea Cucumber. What began as a relaxing outing soon became a gripping tale of survival and redemption, testing their courage and resilience against the unforgiving sea. Quentin Ritz was a successful orthodontist with a passion for nautical adventure. He had secretly purchased this yacht as a surprise for Marianne's 40th birthday. Marianne, an art teacher at the local high school, hated open water and only agreed to the expedition to overcome her fear. On the other hand, young Nigel could hardly sleep the previous night. His imagination had made many visions of man-eating sharks from shark documentaries and action movies. They were sailing down the coast, maybe a few miles out between the mainland and the sea. Nigel was restless. The novelty of the journey had long since worn off, and he'd become bored by the endless track of blue all around them. Nigel set to work playing a trick on his mother in a foolish attempt to spice things up a little. Marianne stood at the yacht's rail, looking at the distant shore, struggling to stifle her panic at being so far from dry land. Sensing her vulnerability, Nigel saw an opportunity for mischief. Creeping up behind her, he grinned with mischievous intent and gave her a firm push, expecting her to stumble backward in fright. Nigel had not expected the boat to lurch violently to one side as it rode up onto an unexpected wave. His push and the boat's movement caused Marianne to fly over the railing and into the shark-filled waters beneath. The splash of the water that Marianne drop-punched resounded through the ocean, with her screams of panic hot on its heels. Adjusting the sails, Quentin turned to see his wife disappear under the water. Nigel just stood there. It suddenly dawned on him what he had done. His childish prank had put his mother in mortal danger, and the gravity of the situation hit him hard. Marianne broke the surface, gasping and flailing in panic. Her deep-seated fear of the water and the knowledge of what lurked below gripped her. Yet as she trod water, a strange sense of calm began to creep over her. Years of watching nature show with Nigel flooded her mind, reminding her of the first rule: don't panic in shark-infested waters. She took a big gulp of air and willed herself to keep quiet because too much thrashing around would only draw attention from the sea's top predators. She shouted to Quentin, her voice bizarrely firm, asking him to throw her some lifesaver. Quentin, coming out of his shock, acted very fast. He threw her a lifeline, dead on. As she was about to take it, a black and evil shadow passed beneath her, and she recoiled instinctively. A giant great white shark, probably 15 feet long or so, had been drawn by the commotion. It circled Marianne slowly, its fin above the surface of the water spinning as if in a blender, while Quentin and Nigel at the boat watched it all in horror, helpless. Marianne called upon every last vestige of her courage to remember something else. Sharks often bump their prey before attacking. She remembered that section as the great white made its first pass, nudging her leg. Marianne made a split-second decision. Bopping the shark in its snout with all her might, she momentarily stunned the colossal predator. That split second was all she needed to reach the life ring. Quentin gunned the yacht's motor, pulling Marianne away from the bewildered shark just in time. Steering the boat close, Quentin had Nigel throw out a rope ladder, tears streaming down his face. With the desperation of a drowning woman, Marianne grasped the ladder, pulling herself up and tumbling aboard, gasping but alive. But the family's nightmare had only begun. The shark thrashing invited other sharks down. Within minutes, a flotilla of fins circled the yacht. Quentin knew he would need help getting this family out of the shark area. He called over the yacht's radio for a mayday. Fortunately, the call was overheard by a tour boat that offered shark cage diving. The more excellent expertise of the tour boat crew immediately responded to their call for help, gauging shark behavior and guiding Ritz's yacht into calmer waters. They realized what had happened as they started returning to the harbor. Overcome by guilt and relief, Nigel sobbed, profusely apologizing to his mother. Still shaking from the close call, Marianne did find it in her heart to forgive her son, seeing the terror and remorse practically displayed on his face. On the other hand, Quentin was just happy that his family was together again. The experience had shaken him so much that he had learned that life was not promised from one minute to the next. Within weeks, the story of the Ritz had become a local legend in Gansbai. More significantly, it was Marianne's bravery that won appreciation. Ironically, her experience with death cured her fear of deep water. She began volunteering at the local Marine Research Center and telling her story to many others to teach them about shark behavior and ocean safety. Nigel, shaken by the experience, became engaged in marine conservation. A haphazard practical joke had turned into a passion for preserving the very creatures that had almost taken his mother's life. Quentin figured the sea cucumber could be donated to the Marine Research Center, and their adventures as a family were probably better suited to dry ground for a while. The harrowing ordeal of the Ritz family served as a stark reminder of the ocean's dual nature, its captivating beauty and lurking danger. This experience tested the strength of their family bond, revealing their resilience and capacity for growth. Through sheer will and determination, they navigated the treacherous waters, ultimately finding forgiveness and a deeper connection in the face of life-altering challenges. This profound journey underscored the transformative power of adversity, turning a day of leisure into an unforgettable tale of survival and redemption. In the summer of 2011, Elias Strand and his wife Marit embarked on their annual kayaking trip to the picturesque fjords of northern Norway. They aimed to visit the remote town of Skjervøy, part of Arnøya Islands municipality, known for its crystal-clear waters and abundant marine life. Elias and Marit are experienced kayakers well prepared for their adventure. They brought all the proper equipment, from life jackets and flares to a satellite phone in emergencies. Little did they know they would soon hop into a heart-pounding situation just about to test their survival skills. On their third day, Elias and Marit paddled into the calm fjord, surrounded by towering cliffs and the majestic peaks of the Lyngen Alps in the distance. The water was mirror-like, reflecting the vibrant colors of the summer sky. Suddenly, a dark shape broke the surface with great force. Elias exclaimed excitedly. They were orcas, an entire pod appearing on the horizon. Then Marit took a stiff gasp, holding the paddle tightly now, and warned that they must not get any closer and should not disturb the orcas. The two paddled slowly, hypnotized by the gentle strokes of orcas gliding on the water. The excitement of hitting the jackpot soon turned into concern as the pod began to try out turns, facing towards them. Marit said uncomfortably that the orcas were getting too close and that they should start paddling back. Elias nodded in agreement, and they started picking up the stroke, powering their kayaks forward with solid strokes. The orcas, however, did not seem daunted, as the sleek bodies derived through the water with unbelievable speed. A sudden breach of the surface a few yards off the bow of Marit's kayak sent her heart racing as an orca, its substantial dorsal fin slicing through the water knife-like, caused her to stiffen. With her heart pounding, the orca let forth with a loud bellow that echoed across the fjord. The couple paddled frantically, their arms burning with exertion as the orcas closed in. It was like some deadly cat-and-mouse game as the creatures circled the kayaks and surged at them, their powerful jaws snapping shut inches away. He fumbled with his suit, desperately trying to grasp the flare gun, his hands trembling from the adrenaline. Shouting above the sloshing water, he warned Marit that if the orcas tried to capsize them, they would need to signal for help. Marit nodded, her face pale with fear. They began paddling again, their muscles screaming in protest. The orcas grew bolder and more aggressive, circling closer with each passing moment. It was when they finally spotted their support whaler out there. Revitalized with the possibility of survival, they began to paddle towards it, with their hearts throbbing in their chests. As they approached the boat, the crew aboard would see the commotion and hurry to let down the ladder. Marit and Elias clambered aboard, shaking their legs with relief, while the orcas circled menacingly nearby. They left the orcas retreating into the depths of the waters. They collapsed onto the deck, gasping for breath, having taken their place safely aboard. The captain, a grizzled old Norwegian named Tor, came towards them with a face careworn from many battles and elements etched in concern. Rough but gentle, he inquired if they were all right. Elias nodded weakly, his arm protectively slung over Marit's shoulder, and in an almost inaudible whisper, said they would be fine but just had to get away from there. As the boat pulled clear of the fjord, leaving the orcas in their wake, Elias and Marit clung to each other, their hearts still pounding from the harrowing ordeal. They had faced nature's raw, unbridled power and emerged victorious, but the memory would haunt them for years. Elias could never forget the sight of those gigantic jaws dripping with seawater, snapping shut just inches from their faces. The encounter left them shaken yet grateful for their survival. It was a poignant reminder of the delicate balance between humanity and the wild, a story they would recount with awe and reverence. This brush with death forged an unbreakable bond between them, deepening their appreciation for life's fragile beauty and their respect for the formidable forces of the natural world. It was 2016, and the Mediterranean Sea was off Marseille, France. Experienced freedivers had gathered on a rental boat to explore the colorful underwater world. The team consisted of a diving instructor from Russia, Dmitry Kozlov, his wife Natalia, his American friend Greg Sullivan, and his girlfriend Caitlin Myers. They anchored the boat a few miles offshore and carefully unpacked their gear: masks, snorkels, weight belts, and fins. Then, with a mutual excitement about the underwater world, they slipped into the calm, azure waters. The day was clear. Consequently, they could easily see the kaleidoscope of marine life that flourished around them. Schools of striped sea bream parted at feet, kicking near them, while spiny lobsters scuttled across rocky exposures below. An avid underwater photographer, Caitlin couldn't stand not capturing this colorful kaleidoscope created by nature through her lens. A smooth, menacing shape broke the surface from below and slid effortlessly toward them with an unnerving velocity. Out there in the ether, a mako shark loomed before their eyes, one of the most feared apex predators plying the waves of the ocean. Known to be incredibly agile and fast, makos were seldom spotted in such waters, much less in a very aggressive mood. Knowing the vast experience of being divers, Dmitry knew precisely how much danger they were in. He motioned for the others to remain cool and hold their ground, hoping it would soon tire of them and swim away. But the mako was getting closer, incoming, arc by arc. Its metallic blue-gray body sliced through the water with all the grace of a torpedo as it viewed them with an unnerving level of interest. Greg, a former Navy SEAL, instinctively reached for the diving knife strapped to his calf, prepared to defend the group if need be. Natalia's heart raced as she remembered that mako sharks were notorious for mistaking freedivers' bubbles and movements for the thrashing of injured prey. She silently prayed their situation wouldn't escalate into an attack. Instinctively, they drew closer together, hoping to appear as a more significant, threatening presence to deter the shark. Dmitry used his signaling device to catch the attention of the boat crew above, hoping they would lower down a safety line for their ascent. A few moments later, a weighted line splashed into the water not far from them. Dmitry nodded to the others as he took the line and began them off on a slow, controlled ascent. Feeling their movement, the mako doubled back on them with alarming acceleration. Because of its speed and agility, the mako shark was a particularly dangerous opponent. Greg, a Navy man, automatically took a defensive position, brandishing his diving knife to fend off the shark. Caitlin clung to Natalia, her wide eyes flashing with fear as the predator closed in. Just then, the boat's engine roared to life and they began hauling them up hand over hand. The mako spooked at the last second, veering off as the engine turned over, and the line started to move quickly. It vanished back into the depths. Finally on board with a collective sigh, the group's hearts still raced from the harrowing experience. Shaken but resilient, Caitlin couldn't resist capturing one final shot of the retreating shark to remind her of nature, and that the ocean can be unforgiving. As they sailed back to land, the divers locked nervous eyes with each other. each making personal vows again to exercise more care in the future when entering the Mako's domain. They had truly experienced how formidable and unpredictable one of the ocean's most supreme predators could be. That evening, as the sun set over the Mediterranean, the foursome gathered at a local cafe, the warmth of the day giving way to the coolness of the night. They sat around a table, glasses of chilled rosé in hand, reflecting on their harrowing encounter. The adrenaline still lingered, but now it mingled with relief and gratitude. The conversation turned solemn as they recounted their near miss with the Mako shark. The experience had not only tested their nerves, but it also instilled a profound respect for the ocean's power and unpredictability. With its beauty and dangers, the sea had shown them that the line between adventure and peril was thin and fragile. They toasted to their survival and the wisdom gained from their ordeal. The clinking of glasses symbolized a deeper appreciation for life and the forces of nature that both fascinated and humbled them. The evening ended with a shared sense of camaraderie and a silent vow to approach future adventures with greater caution and reverence. A research team comprising marine biologists from Auckland University set off on their research expedition to the deep waters off the coast of New Zealand in the year 2009. Their mission was to study the mysterious creature of the sea, the giant squid, that spends its time away from the proximities of human frequentations. Leading the group was Dr. Elizabeth Wilkins, a highly experienced marine biologist eager to uncover the ocean's hidden secrets. She was accompanied by her esteemed colleagues, Dr. Michael Tanner and Dr. Samantha Lewis, along with a crew of professional divers and researchers. Together, they embarked on an expedition to explore the uncharted depths and expand our understanding of marine life. One very dark, moonless night, the team launched onto its research vessel, the RV Nautilus, for several hours of preparation in specialized diving gear, and into the absolute darkness of the Kermadec Trench, the deepest spot of the Pacific Ocean. As they fell below, the dark, powerful underwater lights illuminated the way below, casting eerie shadows in the endless darkness. The pressure increased and the temperature dropped, but their adrenaline from the possible encounter with a person-eating giant squid kept them focused and pressed on. At once, Dr. Wilkins was jerked off her diving line. A tight grip began pulling around her leg, which started to throw her very hard through the water. She panicked even more when she found she was looking into the eyes of the very creature they had come to study. The giant squid, the colossal body looming forward like a living nightmare. Feeling threatened by their bright lights and invasion of space, the squid contracted its grip in a vice hold on Wilkins. In one last desperate struggle, she brought up her diving knife and began slashing at the tentacle, trying to cut free. Given the ghastly spectacle that seemed to play before their eyes, Dr. Tanner and Dr. Lewis did not lose a minute. They signaled their crew above, and very soon, a rescue team was dispatched to save their colleague. She pushed her muscles to the last reserves that her body could afford, fighting the squid from dragging her further into darkness. Her air supply was diminishing fast, and the pressure was becoming unbearably intense at this depth. She suddenly remembered something her training had taught her. Keep calm, don't breathe hard, and think of survival. Sensing her terror, the squid became even more agitated, flinging its tentacles around. At last, Dr. Wilkins could cut into one of them, but the vice-like grip continued unabated. Rescue was in sight when nothing seemed to be going right, and the bright lights pierced the darkness. They had to skillfully coordinate and extricate Dr. Wilkins from the grip of the squid, using correct equipment and techniques devised for cases like these. In a tense, harrowing struggle, the rescue team freed Dr. Wilkins from the squid's grasp. But the creature itself was enraged and bent on protecting what, to the squid, obviously appeared to be its territory. As they ascended, so did the squid, its massive body rocketing through the water with astonishing speed. To defend themselves, the team had incorporated protective tools into their repellence plan. High-intensity lights and sonar devices designed to baffle and bewilder the creature. It felt like an eternity before they finally broke the surface, greeted by the RV Nautilus and the worried faces of their peers. Battered and exhausted, Dr. Wilkins was swiftly pulled onto the deck, where the medic on staff immediately attended to her. The team breathed a sigh of relief, grateful to have survived their harrowing encounter with the deep-sea giant. In the following days, the team reviewed the data and footage taken during the encounter, and it was unimaginable to see how intense and brutal the giant squid was. Dr. Wilkins, recovering quite well from her injuries, developed a new respect for the creature that nearly killed her. After such an ordeal, the team only seemed to increase their determination to study those elusive creatures. They knew very well that many secrets were hidden in its depths, and now they had to face them more than ever before. Dr. Wilkins couldn't help but smirk at that statement whenever someone mentioned her experience with the giant squid. At least now she could say she was hugged by one of the ocean's elusive creatures, keeping a sense of humor despite a near-death experience. The attack of the giant squid had seared into the team's memory, reminding them why their work was necessary, the perils under these waves, a reminder that the ocean was forceful yet alluringly fascinating at the same time. The sun's golden rays played over the crystalline waters of the Cayman Islands, bathing the pristine beaches in a tranquil light. It was the summer of 2006, a much-anticipated season for the Everetts. They had long awaited this vacation, eager to immerse themselves in the warm island breezes and explore the natural wonders of the Cayman Islands. The promise of relaxation and adventure filled the air as they looked forward to days spent under the sun, discovering this tropical paradise's vibrant marine life and lush landscapes. The Everetts, Eliza, and Ethan had planned for this vacation for months, leaving bated breath with their two little children, Lila and Oliver. They had long talks about the family research mixed into what made up the best beaches, restaurants, and activities the islands offered. Powdery white sand expanse shining beneath them, the family walked, marveling at the Caribbean Sea and the turquoise gray, excitedly noticeable. Eliza decided it was time for a refreshing dip, and the Everetts strolled down to the shoreline, grinding their way across the little breakers and washing up on the shore. Never one to let her guard down, she coaxed her children to watch their step and not go in too far. They waded out into the shallow water with the little waves, reveling in the relaxing coolness of the ocean. Lila, 10 years old and interested, could not resist the temptation to check out some tide pools a bit farther on, cautiously counting the colorful marine life teeming out of every hole. However, suddenly, there was a fierce, searing pain at the base of Oliver's left foot, and he cried out. With an instinctual jerk, his foot was raised upward, revealing a small but venomous stingray that had lain in wait just below the surface and was now recoiling from the sudden contact. The Everetts sprang into action, the combination of surprise and worry making their hearts race. Eliza and Ethan quickly raced their kids out of the water. Their minds went into overdrive on what to do next. Eliza asked Oliver if he was okay and said they needed to get him medical attention immediately. Cool-headed as usual, Ethan leaped to his feet and flagged down a lifeguard who had witnessed the ordeal. Well-trained and knowledgeable with proper protocols for stingray stings, the lifeguard did not miss a beat in notifying emergency medical services for on-the-spot medical management, as he led the Everetts toward a marked first aid area on the beach. His pain intensified as his foot swelled and throbbed with each passing minute during their wait in the ambulance. Eliza held his hand tightly, whispering comforting words to him. Lila watched, her large brown eyes fixed on her younger brother, filled with worry and helplessness. Finally, the ambulance arrived and the Everetts were loaded up, a once-in-a-lifetime family vacation now totally wrecked by this unexpected and potentially life-threatening event. The paramedics, already trained to deal with stingray stings, got down to business by giving Oliver painkillers and closely monitoring him. The atmosphere was thick with tension and anxiety as Mr. Everett and his wife clung to the hope that Oliver would receive the proper treatment and recover fully. When they arrived at the nearest hospital, a team of medics was ready to accept them, urgency etched on each of their faces. Oliver was quickly wheeled into the trauma unit, and the drill for treating his injury began. Proper cleaning, the removal of anything remaining of the barb or venom, and antibiotics prescribed to ensure infection didn't set in further. The family watched with bated breath, love, and relief, sketching the undertone of a situation where the medical staff cared for Oliver's well-being. Hours passed, and indeed the Everetts had been suspended in some purgatory, one where their well-laid vacation plans were haltingly on hold until they got word about Oliver's condition. Eliza and Ethan paced back and forth on the icy floors of the hospital, fraying their nerves, while Lila sat still with her mind running like a locomotive on all the possible concerns and questions she might have. And then, the lead physician, Dr. Amelia Hernandez, came out of the treatment room with a comforting smile. She had announced that Oliver would be okay, for the venom had been rendered powerless and the wound looked healing. The Everetts exhaled in unison, their shoulders sagging as the tension bled away. Then they embraced, less a chore and more in joy, tears streaming down their faces. Lila rushed to her brother's bedside, ecstatic to find him safe and on the mend. Oliver improved daily until at last the family could proceed on their vacation, now fully aware it was time to remember they were merely guests in a most beautiful and sometimes scary world. The ordeal had taught them some important lessons, one they took to heart and home in thought and deed. But as the Everetts trudged across the sand towards the beach, a slight dread overcame them. The peaceful, welcoming water seemed right then to possess an invisible malevolence, an intimation of unseen danger waiting just below the waterline. Eliza urged the family closer to the areas marked for swimming. Here, the lifeguards were visible from towers, and the water's safety was governed. As the Everetts' vacation drew close, they considered the lessons they had learned. Although the ordeal was very horrifying, it instilled an additional respect for the delicate balance in nature and the need to be constantly vigilant while wandering amidst alien environments. For the Everetts, the Cayman Islands would forever hold a special place in their hearts, not as a paradise, but as a reminder of the resilience and fortitude behind the heroes' faces. As they climbed aboard the plane for the trip home, they revived their appreciation and determination to tackle the rest of life with the same indomitable spirit they had displayed throughout the ordeal. It had been an emotional roller coaster of a vacation for the Everetts. Still, they had come through it together as a more robust family unit, understanding better the importance of protecting the natural world. The ordeal would impact their lives, affecting their future adventures and appreciation of the world's wonders. In 2007, the relentless sun beat down on the lagoon blue surface of the Atlantic Ocean. Dorian Mirren descended into the depths, his diving equipment gleaming in the dim blue-green light. What was supposed to be a routine survey of a nearby shipwreck, lying at approximately 60 feet deep, revealed an underwater ecosystem of twisted metal and partially submerged cabins. As a 42-year-old environmental scientist dedicated to marine remediation, Dorian's mission was to explore and assess the shipwreck's transformation into a vibrant underwater habitat. Trained eyes swept the ruin, noticing every detail. One of the many vibrant arrays of fish and corals that would make their homes in a sunken vessel. Dressed in his black wetsuit, he headed deeper into the cabin with suited gloved hands, tracing for changes or new growth around the weathered metal and shattered glass. Swimming amidst the ruins, Mirren marveled at the marine life that now called the abandoned wreck home. Colorful schools of tropical fish weaved among the twisted metal, their brilliant shades contrasting with the dull grays and browns of the rusting hull. The wreck was adorned with intricate coral formations, both small and large, each displaying nature's finest handiwork. The elaborate patterns on every surface were a testament to nature's resilience and ability to transform and thrive amidst challenges. Mirren's heart tugged with equal parts marvel and respect about the undersea world he had, in a sense, made a life's work out of protecting. It was alive with life, ultimately entirely everything about this shipwreck. A microcosm of what was alive under the waves, great or small, that teemed with life, each an intricate part of the large and complex ecosystem that was an underlay of the waves. His peripheral vision caught something moving as he swam more profoundly into the cabin. He turned his head right to see the mass of flesh looking back at him, a long shadow in the murk. There was a moment when Mirren's heart had leaped into his throat. Thoughts had raced at the prospect of what this behemoth could be. And then, as the creature drifted closer, its form swam into view, bringing supposed relief and awe in one stroke. It was a Goliath grouper, one of the largest predatory fishes in the Atlantic Ocean. The grouper was gigantic and moved through the water with the ease and grace of movement that one would feel moving through air. Mirren estimated that the fish was well over 8 feet long and had to be over 800 pounds, a true giant of the deep. As the grouper approached, Miran felt reverence pour over him. This creature had ruled these waters long before humanity ever stepped foot in the ocean, a living relic of a time when the seas were untamed and wild. He knew encounters with such powerful apex predators were sparse, and he was given a unique opportunity to observe one of nature's great creatures in its natural habitat. Miran stayed still, and he knew through every instinct and nerve ending that the territorial grouper would interpret a move on his part as a threat. His heart thudded in his chest, but he willed calm, controlled his breathing, and moved gently in every direction to not provoke the enormous fish. The grouper watched him with an indifferent eye. It rolled about in lazy circles through the debris, its tail gently throwing water eddies that twisted around Miran's slackened length. They danced like that, twirling around each other for what could have been hours. A delicate dance in which no one overstepped their boundaries or threatened another's territory. Miran knew he was walking a fine line if he was honest with himself. One misstep or sudden movement might break the peace and trigger some less than pleasant behavior from the apex predator. As time passed, Miran became increasingly enthralled by the giant grouper's movement in the water. The massive creature glided with surprising grace, its smooth, flowing motion exuding a sense of peace and serenity. This gentle giant reminded him that even the most dangerous creatures lived in harmony with their underwater world, each playing a vital role in the delicate balance of this hidden ecosystem. But later, something Miran had not foreseen happened unexpectedly. Without warning, the massive grouper suddenly sprang into motion, its powerful body propelling forward startlingly. Miran's heart leaped into his throat as the predator's gaping maw rushed towards him, rows of razor-sharp teeth glinting in the filtered light. He instinctively tried to backpedal, but the grouper was relentless, its jaws snapping shut mere inches from his face. In that heart-stopping moment when the grouper's gaping maw rushed towards him, Miran instinctively pressed himself against the twisted metal wreckage, using it as a makeshift shield. This desperate tactic ultimately deflected the powerful jaws mere inches from his body. Miran was confident he was about to become the creature's next meal, but as quickly as the attack had begun, the grouper seemed to reconsider, veering off at the last moment and disappearing into the gloom. Miran's chest heaved with panic and adrenaline, but he had narrowly avoided disaster. Though shaken, he was immensely relieved to have escaped the encounter unhurt, his respect for the raw power of this apex predator only growing stronger. Eventually, the grouper lost interest completely, giving a mighty flick of its great tail, and began to drift off into the maw of the black, back where it had come. Miran watched the form of the grouper swam away until he could no longer see it. His heart was still in his throat, a sensation built upon raw excitement and reverence. He knew that he had seen something that few would ever see in their lives, a seldom-held peek into the life of one of the ocean's most magnificent. Indeed, as he started ascending to the surface, Miran's mind was a maelstrom of thoughts and emotions. He felt overwhelmed by the sheer power and wonder that a single fish could stoke. Yet he was inspired to continue his work studying and protecting these beautiful beings. When Miran surfaced, a circle of crewmates immediately surrounded him, their faces a mixture of awe and trepidation. His crewmates were alarmed to see his ashen face and shaken hands. He recounted to them what he had experienced in full detail, painting an almost tangible picture of the size and grace of the grouper and the delicate dance in which they had engaged beneath the waves. His crewmates tried to catch every word he spoke, and his eyes widened in awe and respect for the powerful creature Miran had experienced. Most of all, they talked about the importance of protecting these trademark creatures of the apex and the fragile ecosystems of the home. Miran knew then that his experience would only strengthen his resolve to dedicate his life to that cause. The ordeal was an explicit encounter that had left him badly shaken, and his crewmates quickly ushered him onto the boat, wrapping him in towels and blankets to stave off shock. One immediately radioed for a medical evacuation, requesting a doctor be brought aboard to examine Miran. Within minutes, the sound of rotor blades sliced through the air as a helicopter appeared on the horizon. The aircraft landed on the deck with a thump, and a medical team rushed out, transferring the still trembling Miran onto a stretcher. Though he protested, he was physically unhurt. The trauma of nearly being attacked by such a massive predator had taken its toll mentally and emotionally. His crewmates insisted he be examined thoroughly, as the doctor checked his vitals and looked him over with concern. Mirren appreciated their attentiveness, knowing that the psychological impacts could have been far more severe without their quick response. He would need time to process what happened before diving again. After a proper checkup, the doctor declared Mirren quite fit physically. He had good vitals and no bruises or other injuries from the exhilarating experience with the giant grouper. He warned, however, that mental and emotional shock from such experiences would yet manifest. He counseled Mirren to take a few days off to rest and try to deal with what had just happened before starting with the research dives again. The news that he would not need further medical treatment greatly relieved his crewmates. They turned around to support him with reassurance and emotional help. Although shaken, Mirren's bold spirit was still very much alive. He knew he had stared death in the face when those jaws gaping wide came so perilously close. However, he was also filled with a newfound awe and respect for the raw power of apex predators such as these. After some days spent lounging around on the boat and stitching his feelings regarding the incident, Mirren felt it was time to get back into the water. With the all clear from the doctor, he began pursuing his life's passion once more. His crew supported him as he put on scuba gear again, vowing not to give in to the traumatic event that would see him denied access to the underwater world so full of breathtaking beauty. He knew the risks would always be there when working with such powerful marine creatures, but Mirren was willing to trust that it would add to the human understanding of magnificent beings. In the coming days and weeks, Mirren dedicated himself with fresh zeal to his research's many pursuits. He pored without flinching through volumes of scientific literature, conferred with colleagues, and examined every document, byte of data, and footage gleaned in the encounter with his Goliath grouper. Later on, as Mirren looked out over the vast expanse of open ocean, he could not help but feel that somewhere just beneath those blue surfaces lay the populations of giant groupers he had poured so much of his life into studying had to be prospering. Their gigantic bodies only floated gracefully around the colorful reefs and sunken wrecks spread along the seabed.